My name is Jeff St Laurent. This is the live Tuesday call. I spent some good time talking to a few people that have called in today. So yeah, we got a great topic today in terms of following up. And I like to call it the art of following up to get clients, because it's more than just sending emails or replying to people. It's kind of the mindset behind it all. And I kind of want to talk about some of those thoughts today. When I follow up, and some of the things that I do to kind of help you just be more effective at it. And I love to use that word art, because how about this? There's a certain finesse to it, right? So I'll look at the game of basketball and say, anyone can play basketball. Well, not anyone necessarily, but anyone could dribble a ball and shoot it at the hoop, right? And then you can get better at it. But then there's also a finesse to it, when, like, especially when you watch a professional athlete and you're like, ooh, and there's a part of just watching them move and the way they move. It's awesome to watch that, and the way they can handle it. And they can maybe get the same result, but the way they do it, there's a finesse to it. And I want to give you this finesse with this, and this all relates back to selling. And it's not that like a cheesy or sleazy finesse, but there's just a way of doing it that makes it effortless and easy for people. And it makes it effortless and easy and fun for you as well. To get the same result, and that is, a paying client. So we can get paid, and we can also do what we love, which is coaching people and helping them. So before we get into that, I do record all these calls as I help coaches transition to a full-time business. All of my resources are on my website, sellingcoaching.com. You can check those out under the university. That's where I post these calls each and every Friday after the recordings are done and up and ready to go. Right on the homepage of sellingcoaching.com. I have a great resource, the Ultimate Startup Guide for New Coaches. So if you just enter your name and email right there, that's going to get you a copy of that. So great resource. That's an audio and PDF resource that goes along with it. And then also that's going to put you in my email community. And I want you there, not only to stay in touch with me, not only to see the things that I'm doing, and the valuable things that I share with you from email and how I communicate with my audience, but I want you to be able to see that for yourself. Because for you as a coach looking to transition to full-time, you need to be able to do that as well. So I want to at least role model that. And that's good, because with my one-on-one mentoring clients that I have, I'll always reference that. I'll be like, all right, well, did you see my Monday email that went out? Or did you see my Friday email that went out, etc., as I'm helping them structure their business. And it's a great way to role model from whether you're working with me or not. But if you are in a situation where you find that, I'm struggling with this, or I don't want to struggle with this and I want to move forward, I am available for one-on-one mentoring. You can always go to my website, sellingcoaching.com, if you're curious about that, or you're in a position where you're serious and you want more. Just go to the bottom of the Work With Me page on the sellingcoaching.com, fill that out. I'll follow up with you. We can create a relaxed conversation, and we can figure out the next appropriate steps. And what I would be doing there is I would be following up with you. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about now, is following up with people. And one of the first things I want to say when it comes to following up, or the art of following up is not always, or I don't want you to just think about it as, someone reached out to me, and now I'm following up with them. I want you to think about, or someone reached out to me and I'm following up with them, but they're reaching out to me because they have a specific question, or they're inquiring about my coaching or something like that, or something that we could get paid from. Yes, that's one thing that we obviously want to follow up with those people on. But there's the other type of follow-up, which is still in the same category and still has the same purpose, which is the people that are reacting to some of the things that we're doing. So as I mentor with my coaches and I help them structure their businesses, just like I'm modeling here with my live Tuesday call and my recordings and the emails that I just spoke about. If you're on my email community, etc., it's how I'm getting out in front of my audience, new audiences as well, and then staying in front of them, with my emails, providing them valuable education through these recordings, etc. And the hopes in doing that, and I'll call those, if you will, marketing efforts. The hopes in doing those marketing efforts is to create some type of a reaction, I'll say, or response to all those things. So maybe someone likes my event or makes a comment on my event. in my Facebook group as an example, or on Facebook, maybe they're on my page. Maybe they reply to an email that I send out, or maybe they subscribe to my YouTube channel as an example, or make a comment there. So these are just different examples of what I would call, let's say, reactions to, let's say, my marketing efforts. And so those are things, especially those are things that I want to follow up with. Another way, an example is someone joins my private Facebook group. Maybe you have a meetup group or another type of social platform, let's say LinkedIn, and they make a connection to you, or they respond to your connection, right? These are all reactions or actions, if you will, that they're taking that we want to now follow up on. Because when it comes to following up, if I think about it from a big picture, what is the main objective? All right, well, the main objective, and I'll say this from a business perspective, is we want to get paid as a coach. And we want to get paid for what we're doing. And it's not just all about the money, yet we have a business and we have got a valuable product or the valuable service we call coaching. And in order for us to actually help people and us to flex those coaching muscles, so to speak, not only get better at it, but utilize that and help people, we've got to find the clients, we've got to get paid to do this. And so with that in mind, that's where this following up comes in. And in order to be following up on these types of reactions, as I'm saying, or on the other side, which are even better things when people actually email you directly or have a direct inquiry, like I said earlier, for instance, when I said if you're curious to mentor with me and what that would be like, or if you want to learn more about that, go to the Work With You page, right? Fill out the form, right? So it's an email that comes in, right? Those are great leads to follow up on. Those are much more qualified leads, if you will. But no matter what we're following up on, whether it's something well qualified and a strong lead like that, or back it all the way up to something as minimal as you putting a post on Facebook and someone liking it, and you Facebook stalking that person, and then sending them a message saying, private message on Facebook saying, hey, I noticed you liked my last post on blah, blah, blah. I'm curious, what did you like about it, right? I mean, that could be reaching a little bit, but in the beginning, especially when we have small or no audience, those are the types of actions that have got me to where I'm at now. So that's why I talk about those things, because those are the unsexy small things that no one really talks about, but those are what I found and have found since doing this full time since 2004. Those are the small, like, dirty things, if you will, the dirty work of the business and the realities of it that get you paid, especially when times are lean, or to get you off the ground and to get you going. So wherever you're going with all that stuff, like I said, the main objective is so we can begin, if you will, the qualifying process. I'll call that the sales conversation, if you will. And then hopefully that leads towards a paying client, right? So that's fast forwarding all the way. But then we rewind back to this, right? So today's not talking about the qualifying aspect of it, or these sales conversations, as I'm saying. Once these conversations begin, I'm going to get into a little bit about, but I want to focus on the following up piece to it. And so the number one thing I want to talk about is if I were to break those two different follow-up activities into like two areas. One would be, let's say, the less qualified, simply reactions that I've referred to, and one would be the more qualified leads, like, let's say, a direct inquiry from your website, or someone asking about coaching after an event that you do, a live speaking engagement, and says, hey, tell me more about your coaching, right? Those are more serious, better qualified leads to follow up on, and the other ones are more of just simple reactions that we want to start following up on as well. And if we know the ultimate objective, we want to keep that in mind. And with that being said, I want you to approach these follow-up conversations not with this killer instinct of like, oh, I'm going to get a client out of this, right? Or, oh, I'm going to get paid, right? That's when we approach this follow-up, we become too aggressive, and we do something I would call like more self-centered or self-focused selling. And that's where we've all experienced where people come up to you and they just try and sell you something, right? They don't care to take the time to get to know you. They don't care to take the time to get to know if you would find what they are offering valuable or not, or if you would have a need or a want for it, or even be open to talking about it. They just come up to you and they just say, hey, want to buy a t-shirt? Hey, want to buy this? Or in coaching terms, it's just like, hey, I see you're going through this. I think you should hire me as your coach, or you should check out my program, right? And it's not pushing stuff on people, which makes people uncomfortable, right? So even though we have that, and I want you to, that agenda, if you will, of, yeah, we want them to hire us as our coach, etc. I want you to keep that on the back burner. I want you to keep that in mind and be mindful of it. So please don't forget that that's what you're doing. You're in business for that. what I find is as I start mentoring with people, I also have a group program that I do called Live Sales Conversations, where it's a group video call, and all my coaches are on there. That typically they've gone through one-on-one mentoring with me for a while, and they've got their businesses up and running, but I'm helping them with those live sales conversations, right? And what I find as I dive into those conversations, we do screen shares and we kind of work through a lot of this stuff, in this group, helping them, how to respond specifically and things like that, and then teach them as well. As I find a lot of these conversations, what they do is it's almost like they've forgotten about that they're a full-time coach and they have this great product called coaching, right? And that they can sell that to this person if they're qualified. They almost forget about that. And it's almost like these conversations, as I look through them, they're helping people, right? They're asking coaching questions. They're sending them resources, right? And these people, of course, it's great. You're starting to help people. But what you're not doing is you're not starting to find out, like, well, what is this person going through? And, maybe why did they react to your video or your call or a post that you did? Why did they make a comment on it? And if they say something like, great job, or I really like this, or, it's starting to find out a little bit more like, well, hey, I saw you did that. Or like, what do you like about it specifically? It's starting to ask some of those questions. What are you going through in your world right now where this, whatever piece of content resonated with you? Tell me what's happening right now where, you love this, or it sounds like you really benefited from this. Tell me more specifically what it was that you benefited from. And so asking those types of questions, and all we're doing right there is we're being a great coach, right? We're being curious. You could even say, hey, I'm curious. Use some of that framework. That's the finesse I'm talking about, right? It's the finesse of starting to follow up with those and just being genuinely curious and finding out more information. It's using words like, tell me more specifically what you saw, what you heard, etc. That's resonating with you. It's asking the deeper question. But if you notice, I'm being a coach by asking the questions, but I'm not asking if you will, coaching question like solution focused, like, well, tell me what your first steps are, or I noticed you watched this video on blah, blah, blah. I'm curious, you find out a little more about what they're doing, and then you're asking them like, well, what are your first steps, or what are you doing about that? Or if you did know, what would it be? We're kind of more asking questions to find out more of the current state that they're in and what they're going through right now. Because again, this starts to bring like a qualifying process where we want to start to find out that need, and we want to start to find out, what are they going through in their world right now? Because that's what we have to start to assess. This is going to help you with this, keeping that agenda in the back of your mind as you ask these types of questions. Is we've got to start to find out, well, what are they going through right now in their world where they might need some help with, or they might find value in what we offer as a coach, or maybe you've got a course or things like that. But either way, it's like if you're offering something that we're selling, the finesse way, if you will, of starting to follow up is starting to ask these genuinely curiously open-ended questions that starts to get people to talk a little bit more, shows our interest, shows that we care, because we do, right? We're not just asking it superficially. We do want to get to know them. We do want to get to nurture them and nurture this relationship, start to open up some trust so they can trust us. That's done very easily because if we're taking the time without an agenda to actually say, hey, tell me more about this, or I noticed you liked, a comment I did, or a post I did, and we're taking the time to do that. Where I do this a lot is when people join my private Facebook group, and I'll take the time and I'll message them and, hey, I'm curious. I saw you join my group, so happy to have you. I'm curious, how'd you hear about me, and what was your motivation for joining? And I want to take the time to follow up on those conversations. And when I follow up on those conversations, it's like, yeah, do I want a new client? Of course I do. But it's like, that's not in the forefront. I'm just trying to create a conversation. Like I said, nurture these conversations, nurture the relationship, and starting to nurture and build trust. And wherever it goes, I'm okay with. That's the biggest thing is I don't have the agenda of, I have to go down that client. It's only going to go down the agenda if it needs to, meaning if, wow, this person's got a huge need right now. Obviously, in my case, that something along them wanting to do a full-time coaching business, and it sounds like, or we've gotten out specifically like, the timing could not be better for them to start working on it. And if they haven't asked at that point, that's when I get to that point of creating an approach where I might end up saying something like, hey, listen, based on you telling me what you have, and the timing seemingly couldn't be any better, I'm curious if you'd ever consider, or if you'd be open to taking a closer look at how I could assist you or how I could help you if you were to hire me as your coach, right? If they haven't said that already. But that's what we're getting to. And like I said, I'm not going to talk you through the qualification process today. I wanted to get you there just a little bit so you can start to see, what some of that language sounds like and ultimately where we're going towards. Because obviously with a follow-up, a lot of it, and even some of the people we talked to before we came into today's call, they're saying it's like sometimes we don't know where to go with those conversations. And this is where I want to start to talk about some of the finesse, if you will, or the philosophy behind the follow-up is with the follow-up, we need to make sure we have a direction and we take charge of the follow-up. We can't be passive in follow-up. We can't allow them to take the lead. We've got to take the lead. And also when we're following up with things, we want to stay away from large questions like, how are you doing? It's like, who's going to respond to that? How are you doing? From a perfect stranger, like, good? Like, ask my son, how are you doing? He's 12 years old. What's he going to say? He's like, good. How was your day? It was good, right? That's a 12-year-old response, like I'd like to say, right? But adults are no different. It's like if someone out of the blue asks you that, it's like, so we can't ask them questions that are too big or that they really have no idea how to respond to. And that's why we want to get, specific with our questions if we can. Tell me a little bit more specifically about this one area, or you mentioned X, or I saw you mention this in a comment or a question that you had, in this group or this forum. Tell me a little bit more specifically about what you mean by X. Right? So that they can answer that question. But if it's too vague and too general or too big, then it's most likely I'm not going to get a response from people, because just like think about it yourself. If you've got something from a stranger that you don't know, even if it's with the best intentions, if it's just general and things like that, you might not get back to them. And it's not like you're being rude. It's just like you just don't know how to answer that, and therefore it's not a top priority because you don't quite know where to take it. And so in other words, that's where with the follow-up, we want to make sure that we know where to take it. And also we direct them, and so that they start to know where they can take it, so we can actually get a response. And that's where it's keeping it small, specific questions, not asking more than one, maybe two questions. Like I said when people join my private Facebook group, I'll say, hey, as I mentioned before, so glad to have you. Curious how you found me and your motivation for joining. Right? Yeah, that's two questions. Very simple. I've found and I've tested that, and that works well because pretty much every person that answers that answers both those questions. And maybe the first one is, I don't remember how I found you. I just came across you. But either way, it's me starting to understand, maybe what marketing efforts that I'm doing that are paying off, so I can maybe do more of those to get more of those reactions, which then in turn give me more opportunities to follow up and create these nurturing relationships. And as I talk about these things, and be more specific, and make sure we're ending with a question, as we start to champion or acknowledge or clarify what they're saying, as a coach would in the conversations or in these follow-ups. We always want to end with a question, and we want to make that question nice and small and bite-sized, if you will, so they can actually follow up with us, so we can keep that conversation going. So those are some of the kind of the bottom line philosophies that I like to say. Also with some of that stuff, and I'll get into this in a moment too when I go into the other types of follow-up for the more qualified leads. But for these, from a timely manner, I want to make sure that you're timely with your responses. It's not letting things go on for too long. When you don't have a lot of, if any, follow-up situations going on, it's easy to spend a lot of time and focus on, let's say, the few that you have. And that's another thing with the follow-up here, especially with the lighter side of these follow-ups, like the reactive type follow-ups from, let's say, the marketing efforts that you're doing, people generally liking a page or joining a Facebook group or something like that, is that when you don't have a lot going on, don't hyper focus too much on that handful of leads, if you will, or that handful of follow-ups, because then you're going to be over analyzing it and be like, oh my God, it's been 5 minutes. Why hasn't this person gotten back to me? Obviously, I'm exaggerating a little bit here, but like I said earlier, in that live sales conversations group that I run, and even with my one-on-one mentoring clients, oftentimes I'll get like, oh, Jeff, I just, I followed up with this person, and maybe they're in that group, and they're like, I did just what you said, and they haven't gotten back with me yet. What do I do? And I'm like, well, when did you do it? When did you follow up with them? And they're like, well, like yesterday or last night or even 2 or 3 days ago. And I'm like, all right, well, it's Monday. Well, it just was the weekend went by, or, we just had a holiday, or even if it's been a week sometimes. In our world, this is something we want to recognize when we're following up, especially as we talk about in a little bit towards the more qualified leads. But, these lighter leads, not so much. But especially with the more qualified leads, when we follow up with somebody, in our world, a second, I'll use slight exaggerations, but a second feels like years. Whereas for them, a week or 2 weeks is like a second. It's the exact opposite from both worlds. So when I'm following up, especially with a qualified lead, and it's just like, whoa, it's been a half day, or so I sent it yesterday. Why haven't they gotten back to me yet? They said they were interested, or said they were serious, or it felt like a serious inquiry, but it's been a day. And it feels like forever, and it's like, oh my God, should I follow up again? But you've got to recognize, give some people time to follow up. I mean, yeah. And how about this because I don't know exactly your situations and what you're following up with, I'll give you a general rule for this conversation is that, the more serious the inquiry, the more proactive I'll be, in the follow-up and giving it less time in between follow-up. And less time, you can't really judge, like, what does that actually mean? But just make sure at the end of your follow-up, especially the second time, it can be fairly close to the first one on a serious inquiry. So someone goes through my website as an example, and they fill out that form I mentioned at the bottom of the Work With Me page because they're considering working with me one-on-one mentoring. So I get that form, and I want to follow up on that as soon as I possibly can when I get that. So then let's say I give them a call, leave them a message, and then I send them an email as well. And let's say I did that this morning at 9 a.m., all right? So if I don't hear back from them the next day, let's say it's been a 24-hour time period, if you will, I will definitely follow up with them again. Because I would expect to hear back from that person. Or how about this, depending on when it is, maybe like towards the end of that next business day. So this way I'm giving them at least, a full business day or part of a business day and then another whole one to follow up with. And because it's a serious lead, right? The most serious lead I could get as an example would be someone filling out the Work With Me page at the bottom of the form at the bottom of the Work With Me page. Couldn't get a more serious inquiry other than someone calling me, which really ever happens, if never, saying, or at the end of an event saying, hey, I really want to, work with you, or tell me more about your coaching. I'm considering working with you. Tell me more. Like, those are the most serious inquiries you can get, right? So I'm going to have less time. It's a reasonable amount of time, but when that time frame goes by, I also recognize it's only been, let's say, a day, 24, maybe, let's say 30, 36 hours since I responded to them. What I've learned is on that second response, if they haven't gotten back to me yet, I'll follow up again, assuming it hasn't been a weekend or a holiday or things like that. It's been a business day or something like that. And I'll say, it's like, hey, listen, I know I called you yesterday and sent you an email as well. I just want to be proactive again and follow up with you because I hadn't heard from you. I'm sure you're busy, but and I'm going to base it upon their inquiry. But I'm going to say, based on your inquiry, it sounds like you're serious about this. So I just want to be proactive and follow up with you again. If for whatever reason I don't hear back from you, and now this is me controlling the follow-up, if you will, and leading it, in other words. Say, if I don't hear back from you, probably in a couple days, or, depending, let's say it's a Wednesday, right? And I'll say, if I don't hear back from you, let's say by the end of the week on Friday, I'll definitely give you a call and an email again, just to make sure, I'm on top of this and we can connect. And so this way I'm giving myself an excuse to follow up again. So I'm assuming at some point they're going to get my voicemail and or read my email. And this way, if they don't get back to me, I'm telling them that they'll hear from me again, and I'm going to give a specific day, right? And so I'm getting real specific with this stuff. But now when it comes Friday, I just go to my calendar. I just put, follow up with, Michelle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to know who that is. And if, the more and more people you get, you just might need to take a little bit of notes, because sometimes, like I've got a lot of leads going on, so I've got to make little notes. So like if I don't remember who Michelle is, or I might have several of them, I would write in my book, follow up with Michelle, and then I write like EM, which would mean email, or, FB, which means Facebook Messenger. These are my little codes that I have for myself, right? Which to remind me, if for whatever reason I don't remember who Michelle is and I see, EM, I'm going to go to my email and go, oh yeah, this is the Michelle from email. And I'm going to go to the email. I'm going to go to the inquiry. I'm going to follow up with her again, right? That's where I keep my stuff. Or if I go to Facebook Messenger, I'm going to go to the thread and go, oh yeah, here's her message. And let me follow up with them, this person from there. So that's kind of like the finesse piece to it and making sure it also gets done. And I follow up with my word because another rule, which I shouldn't even have to say when it comes to following up and finesse of it or the art of it, is actually follow up. And you might laugh to that, but the reality of it is, and again, this is real stuff because I used to do it way back in the day. And a lot of my clients sometimes call after call when we talk about it, like, hey, tell me about your follow-up. And they'll be like, I didn't do it yet. And we kind of laugh about it, but sometimes it's scary. And the whole reason I'm doing this and the whole reason why I help my clients out with the one-on-one and my group stuff is because sometimes we don't follow up with people at all because we don't know what to say or we're scared of it. And it's mostly because we don't know what to say or we don't know what to do or we don't know how to approach it. Or we're just, we're afraid of getting the no, but what I found, it's actually more afraid of actually getting the yes. And what if there is a favorable response? Well, if we don't know what we're doing next, right, then it's just like, well, I'm less likely to actually do it because what if they say yes? Then what do I do? So I don't do anything in the first place. So we've obviously got to make sure we do this and, create the space for them to say yes with some of the things that I'm talking about here. So then you can realize, oh crap, I don't know what to do next. And then either A, figure it out or realize you need some help with it. And that's where I come in as an example and can help you figure out some of that stuff. So you know what to do and you're much more likely to respond. And a lot of lack of follow-up in general comes from just the lack of what's next, whether they say yeah or whether they say no, or if they give you an objection, how do I navigate this conversation, so to speak, to go in a favorable direction? Or a favorable direction is just as much a yes as it is a no, because I'd like to say we're a decision collector. At the end of the day, we're looking to get a yes or no from somebody. Doesn't mean we're going to approach everybody and say, hey, would you consider hiring me? But at the same time, we want to get them to a direction, and if it does lead to that, we want to lead it to a yes or a no. So those are some of the points right there that I want you to be cognizant of. And then also when it comes to, as we're talking more about like the serious inquiries now versus the reactive type follow-up, but there's these follow-ups for these serious inquiries. Not only is actually following up and doing some of those things I just mentioned, but the timing of those are also a lot more urgent. So on the reactive type things, people joining my Facebook group, commenting on a post, depending on what's going on, things like that, and what the responses are, the timing of it, yeah, I want to be proactive and I want to do it as soon as possible so I can stay on top of that, especially when you don't have a lot of leads and you've got more time, with those things. You have a lot of clients. Yeah, so be timely and get on top of that stuff. But when you find yourself, you've got a lot more clients, you've got a lot more leads, you've got a lot more things going on, you've got to prioritize the timeliness of which responses are requiring your response today, right now, versus the ones that can wait. And the ones that are the more reactive ones that are prioritized are the ones where they're pouring their heart out. They're opening things. They're opening up to me, and they're sharing some specific things where I'm like, wow, this person could really utilize me. Those are going to take a priority, and from a timeliness perspective, I'm going to be a lot more on top of those because blatantly they just got a lot more prospect towards leading down the avenue of a client. So someone that's, let's say, not as reactive, not as opening up as much, doesn't mean that I don't value them or those conversations. It just means that, well, if I get back to them today or I get back to them tomorrow or even a week from now, it probably doesn't matter too much. I'm not going to not get back to them at all. And sometimes there's a case where you get way more leads than time. Sometimes that happens. I would love for you to get into that situation. I've been in a situation like that, and I hate it sometimes because, there's some people I can't get back to, but it's never the people that are really opening up and really sharing those conversations or really showing that they've got some strong needs right now, because I know that those can potentially turn into something. But the other ones, it's like that the timeliness doesn't matter as much. It doesn't mean don't get back to them. It just means it doesn't matter as much. We need to prioritize those things, and we need to recognize that all the way up to the more serious inquiry where, like I said, they're going through your website or they're coming up to you after your event and they're saying, hey, I want to work with you or I'm considering hiring you. The timeliness on those responses are imperative. this past weekend I was in New York, as an example. I got an inquiry on Friday. I was traveling down to the city, and I was in the city. I was literally right in the middle of Times Square, and this is not even like an exaggeration at all. And I got a website inquiry from my Work With Me page. And again, like I said, there's no more serious inquiry than someone filling out that form. And if you're curious why I'm saying that, go to sellingcoaching.com and look at that form and just see how I word that. And now you'll know why, if someone actually filled that out, why it's such a serious inquiry, right? But I was just checking my email. My girlfriend was out. She was actually finding a bathroom, and I was just going to wait right there. So I'm like, looking around, things like that. And I just checked my email quick, because that's what you do when you're in business sometimes. You can definitely put it down, but I like to go through it real quick and just delete some things, see if there's any urgent matters like leads like that. And I got a website inquiry. You know what? So I took a moment and I just literally replied back and I said, hey, listen, thanks so much. I'm so glad, you're considering working with me, and I'm really excited to learn more about you and where you're at and what you're looking for and how I can assist you if you were to work with me. Listen, I'm away in New York for the weekend. I wanted to let you know I received your email, and I will respond back to you first thing on Monday morning. Have a great weekend. I can't wait to, talk to you, or whatever I said. Boom, send the email, right? And I want to get back to that person, right? And so first thing Monday morning, guess what I did? I called the person up because I had their phone number, created a conversation. And one of the first things they said was, oh my God, Jeff, it was so great getting that email from you. So I love how fast you responded. And if I had waited, until Monday to follow up, would it have been bad? No, not necessarily. But one thing I want to put this all back on is when it comes to selling, as I said earlier, when the qualifying, people buy because of need, but also the timing of that need, which means when the timing is right, people buy. And who knows who else this person might be looking at as maybe a mentor coach. That's the reality of it, is sometimes they're looking at other things. Just like, it's not like buying a TV necessarily. If one place doesn't have it, or I'm going to go online and get a better price, but I'm ready to buy, I'm going to buy. Right? And if someone doesn't respond or call back, or they're not there when it's ready, then you could lose a sale. But it's not much different when it comes to what we're doing. It doesn't mean that they have all this access to all these other coaches. And if we're specific enough with who we help with what specifically, then they're less likely to just have someone else lined up, or that they're interested in, that they're looking at. But even with that being said, this person could be looking at another person. You know what? I don't get back to that person for 3 days. Guess what? Come Monday, I give them a call. I email them. Next thing you know what? Oh, I actually hired somebody else. It's happened before. Trust me. That's why I talk about some of this stuff. It's not just stuff I'm making up. I don't want you to lose that sale. You know what? So when you follow up right away, I'm not saying, compromise the whole weekend. I wasn't going to call the person up there and have a 10, 15-minute conversation in the middle of Times Square, and my girlfriend looking at me like, dude, what's up? Put your business down, right? I'm not going to do that. But what I can do is, can I take, 2 minutes tops and respond to that person? Absolutely. And if I didn't do it then, I would have taken time at some point later on when, whatever, someone's going to the bathroom, or there's a quick moment where we're just waiting for something, and I can do that real quick, because those things matter. And those are the things that make the difference between you getting paid and not getting paid. And those are the things that are going to make the difference of just following up with people, or I'd say that's the art or the finesse of it all, because it makes you stand out in that speed of response and the timeliness of it, and how you approach it with some of the wording that I gave you today. Those are going to all play a factor in also the person's experience on the other end. And the reality of it is, and I don't say this to you, but I want to bring it top of mind for you, is the reality of it is we've all been in situations before where we're shopping for things, we're inquiring about things. And let's just take it outside of the world of coaching, and I don't care what it is, but you call and you leave someone a message, and they're a business, right? They're a business. I don't care what kind of business. And people do not get back with you, or they don't get back with you in a timely manner, and their follow-up is I'll just say it's piss poor. When I have a great follow-up experience, I am wowed, and when it's timely, and not a long story here, but I've done some stuff with the Boston Celtics, with my son. He's wanting to get tickets and things like that, and long story, but I won't go into it, but he wanted to meet Kyrie Irving, really big name basketball player. So I was putting my stuff out there, trying to get connected to these people, and I was blown away. I mean, email a perfect stranger, one of probably thousands of people emailing, Celtics management. I'm just getting general emails off of websites. And these people are getting back to me within a day. And I'm like, are you serious? And one guy I called and he called me back. And I'm like, whoa, blown away by these people, right? So what I'm saying is the average population doesn't follow up at all, and or takes forever to follow up, and or their follow-up is piss poor in the sense of they don't do any of the things that we're talking about here. And so if you implement a fraction of what I'm talking about here, and just following up in a timely manner, that in and of itself can make the difference of you getting the client or not. Never mind all the other points that I'm making here. So I want to point those things out because I know you've experienced them before. And those are the things that alone can start to build value for you as a coach. Because remember, we're supposed to hold people accountable and help keep in front of them, let's say, their stuff, right? That they need to keep in front of them. And so when we follow up with them, or when we start, doing some of those things I said earlier, when we start asking them those tough questions and those specific questions, and we're making them think, yeah, that's part of the value of what we do as a coach, but that's already starting to build the value of what we do as a coach. Before we even start talking about that, they're already starting to feel it, and it's subconscious. They don't know that value is building towards what we do, but they're already having such a great experience. So when it comes time towards that coaching, where they are open to it, or we ask that, and we make an approach, and then obviously have a complimentary session, it all goes into their factor in building that value and ultimately the decision whether they want to hire us or not.